Sagittarius, well, welcome, and it's great to see you. Let's have a look at your Sagittarius November 2019 reading, shall we? Oh, before I start, I will mention that I have uploaded your 2020 yearly reading, and you can find that on the playlist on my channel, or just search Nigel Sagittarius 2020, and that will take you to the video. Now, it's an extended video. I think it probably goes for, about an hour. So get yourself a drink, sit back and luxuriate in it. Now today for you, I'm going to use the Thoth Tarot deck. Now this deck frightens a lot of people because the esoteric imagery in it can be startling to the uninitiated, but I'm going to point out the aspects of it to you which will get right down into your shadow self, and I'll use my pen to point out any of the features on the card which I think are important to derive the meaning of the card for you, depending of course on what energies are coming through and how the cards are placed sitting next to one another and the elements of the cards. For example, fire and water don't go together, and earth and air don't go together, so there can be some problems there. But let's get things underway, shall we? A little bit of practical magic underway there. Let's see what there is in store for you. This one looks like it's coming out. There is the Knight of Wands. What's this? The Ace of Wands. Oh, Sagittarius. Fantastic. Fantastic. That Knight of Wands has got a lot of Sagittarius all over it for me. I can even feel that energy coming up now. This is coming out, whatever that may be. The Queen of Discs. Let's see what there is more, two more. That's all we'll need. And then we can get some. Now you're jumping out, are you? Looks like you are. So let's see what there is. The Queen of Cups. And one more. Who has something to say? They all speak to me, these cards. Yes, I am taking my medicine, but they have different things to say at different times. And what is going on here? Well, let's just grab this one, shall we? There is the Seven of Wands. Wow, Seven of Wands, Ace of Wands. Look, why don't you come down, sit down next to me, have a good close look at the imagery on these cards while I do the reading for you. All right, Sagittarius, now here we go. Just let me reach round and pick up this deck, which I'm going to put down here next to it. Now, of course, I'm not going to use it, but it's a new deck, and as is my shamanistic practice, I just leave it here to watch and to learn as we go ahead. A lot of fire for you. Isn't that good? Now, this card here is pushing this away, and this card is pushing it away. Now, I'm going to talk first about this card, which is this, well, this Ace of Wands, the Lord of the root of the powers of fire. Now, if we look at the imagery on it, there is a fiery colored wand, which actually, if you look behind these things, it actually takes on the shape of the Kabbalistic tree of life. This wand is a phallic symbol, and you can take these, well, these things are in the shape of a yod or a yud, which is the first letter of the divine name, YHVH, which today we call Yahweh. And these things act almost as if it's, well, as if there's sperm erupting from the shaft of this wand. There are 18 green for creativity, green bolts coming from it, and 18 is the number of another Hebrew word, chai, which means life or living. Now, this is really about creation, and there's a couple of things that I think is necessary to say to you, and in particular because this card is sitting here, and it is this, that there is nothing you cannot be, there is nothing you cannot do, there is nothing you cannot have. You are the most magnificent, the most remarkable, the most splendid being God has ever created. For who could reject such wondrous magnificence? But you do not know who you are, and you think you are a great deal less. You are your own rule maker, and you are the only one who can assess how you are doing. All you see in the world is your idea about it. Life will take off for you when you choose for it to. An idea becomes a thought becomes a word, and say the word out loud, because words have power and they reverberate throughout eternity. A word becomes action. And if you are going to do it, because this is about potential and beginnings, start and go all the way. Do it. Do it. Do it. If you are not going to do it, don't start. But start. Go all the way. Seize the opportunity. Rejoice in it. And let no power on earth take it from you. You know, creation is an eternal birth, a beginning without end. And the same power that burns in the stars burns in you. Your being is a miracle, equal with the creation of the universe. And like the universe, each day is created anew. Now this card is saying to you that, well, I think that there is opportunity that's here for you. People who are around are going to be important to you during this period. Who is it likely to be in this month? I think it's going to be Leo. I think Virgo and Cancer are people who I see being important to you. This is about a new start, possibly a passionate union with your vital life surges, forging ahead. You have at this time a period when you are going to have a breakthrough moment of insight and feel inspired and motivated to move your life forward. A big opportunity is opening up for you. This ace is about the seed of the suit. It is about potential, and it requires you to place your hand into the well of quantum potential, grasp hold of something, and permit it to crystallize into reality. You have a latent potential which is going to be tapped into, and it's a perfect time for you to draw upon your imagination and make your dreams come true. And spiritually, this may well be a time for you to rewrite your life. I think you'll have some interest in that area. Now, the reason why I was started with that card is because the energy of this is so forceful this month. It's pushing this away, and this card is pushing this away. And I'm going to deal with this, and then I'm going to deal with that. But I'm not forgetting this tremendous King of Wands up here, which I have Sagittarius written all over. Let me deal first, though, with this card, which is the Seven of Wands. And I want to say something quickly about the number 7. The number 7, for me, deals with an area of divine emanation which is involved with overcoming, with pushing forward, with consideration, and having considered, with pushing forward to make things happen. It is about success. It is, in a nutshell, about victory. And for me, I have very much the planet of Venus associated with the number 7, and therefore in the card. Now, if we look at some of the symbology here, we have a card. Well, first of all, I'll talk about the astrology of the card. And it is Mars in the 3rd decan of Leo, at 13th to the 22nd of August, with a Venus ruled number associated with it. So Mars in Leo. Now, here are 7 wands. The wand in the front takes the form of a club, and it's turning amber, which is due to the presence of Mars, the burning energy of Mars. These are 2, what do you call them, lotuses, I suppose, which have closed up. You may not be able to see it, but this blue color here, for me, esoterically is associated with the planet of Venus. And Venus doesn't sit well with Mars, because it's Mars in the card, and so these lotuses have closed up. This Phoenix and this Phoenix here, they're starting to turn red towards the end of their beaks, showing the appearance of Mars, which is saying that there is something which has been holding your creativity back. There is something which has been proving to be something of a difficulty. And this is reinforced by these 2 caduceus, which are on this force here. This is compounded by this sort of angry-looking background to the card. Now, I call this card the Lord of Valor. And what does it have to say for you in the context of these other cards which are here? Well, I think you stay over there. You learning, I hope? Good. This card is, I think, saying that, look, I think that the energy of the suit of fire in wands is weakened this far down away from the ace. It's weakened. The ace is here, and if you were to say what number, aces don't have a number, but were they to have one, it would be 1. But the energy of the fire suit is being weakened this far down, and it's being doubly pushed aside by this card. Now, the weakened energy this far down in the suit of wands says to me that, well, associated also with the feminine energy of Venus, further diluting the strength of fire in this suit. Now, it's Mars in Leo, but Mars normally likes Leo. But in this case, being so low down on the suit, harmony does not exist. And also the feminine energy of Venus does not sit well with Mars. Mars can be very rambunctious, and it's almost like a man who's hungry and hasn't had enough to eat, or hasn't had anything to eat. He'll be cranky and temperamental. And I think that there is the case that what has been happening with you is that there has been some thought, I think, in you that it is pretty well only your Mars energy which is keeping you going. It's almost like you feel like you have been fighting a losing battle in relation to something, or that, there's something that, something like sitting on a sinking ship in relation to a circumstance, or in relation to a relationship. Maybe you feel you haven't been dealt the best hand, and I'm getting that from this club, which is sitting in front of you here. And even because of this chaotic background that's going on in the card, you may feel that even in the background, things are not going well for you. Now, this can relate to a problem with a particular relationship where you're running out of energy and ideas as to how to keep sustaining it. Or it can relate to work matters where you've been sort of coming to the end of your tether. That's the energy which is coming up about it. Now, it's not great news, but what is the good news is that it's on its way out. So there is going to be a resolution of it, and the resolution of it is going to be favorable. Because the other cards here, this one, well, these two are interesting together, and I'll get to that, but this one here particularly is also influencing this. And this is going away, so this is a thing which is being overcome. Let's have a look at this Queen of Discs. Well, here is the Queen of Discs, and Well, what we can say here is that here is a woman who is sitting on a throne of green, which is all about creativity. She's sitting there with a couple of large horns coming out of her headdress. Those large horns actually are the type of horns that are on goats that you find in the mountains of Afghanistan. I don't know if there's any goats left in Afghanistan mountains now because of all the 20 years or something of fighting that's been going on there. But what that does signify is that she is, because those goats are up high, they're very spiritual. Here is a Capricorn figure sitting on top of a globe, and that refers to the sun, and the sun in Capricorn is the astrological association that I have with the card. There's also the case here that she's holding a stick with a cube on the top. The cube relates to matter. There's anything else of interest around here? Oh, look, the only other thing I think is, this globe here, this golden globe. Look, it's quite esoteric. I won't go into it in detail because it'll take us about 2 hours to do so, but suffice it to say that there are 13 interlinked circles there, and that relates to a pathway that connects this card to the card of the High Priestess. There is in the background a desert, and there is a river winding through the desert. She's obviously crossed this desert and has now come to an oasis. And the oasis is giving her a great deal of peace and joy and comfort. And I think that's where you are at this moment. You have had barren times, haven't you? You have had difficult times, haven't you? Just as she has. But with this river going the whole way through there, it says that the Spirit has been with you the whole time. And that, funnily enough, you have been spiritually guided the whole time, and that the difficulties that you have come across you are never given anything that you can't deal with. Let's put it that way. Now, the Queen of the Thrones of Earth is what I refer to her as. Look, she, as I say, she's the sun in Capricorn, so I think that Capricorn, yeah, I'm actually getting a Capricorn person as being someone who is of importance to you during this period in November. But so is Sagittarius. So is Sagittarius. And so I think it could also very much relate to you here, you know, or to another Sagittarian. This woman is ambitious. She's affectionate and kind, charming, timid, practical, quiet, and sort of domesticated is what I'm getting. She's ambitious, but she works with instinct and intuition rather than with intellect, I think. And that might be the type of person that you're connected with. She's quiet, hardworking, and practical, sensible. But she needs to be careful that things don't become too mechanical in her life. You know, it just doesn't do things for the sake of doing them. The person represented by this image, to me, is someone who possesses the finest of the quieter qualities. And she can, in a reticent and unassuming fashion, actually be quite sexy and lusty, and get into the drink and the drugs, almost as if people like her kind of think that that's the only way that they can realize their essential happiness is by getting outside of themselves. But someone who very quietly is going about things can, on the quiet, actually be very seductive and sexy. Well, it's always the quiet ones, isn't it? At least in my experience it is. Oh, I probably shouldn't say that. And what does she have to say? Well, I think that she's asking you, I think, to keep a practical and compassionate and nurturing attitudes towards others and yourself during this period, and to, in a sense, go with the flow. Now, in this sense, I think she's tempering what's coming up through here. There's going to be something going to be, a difficulty is going to be enlivened by this Knight of Wands up here, by this guy, for how you behave during the period. Because she's talking to you about going with the flow. Now, she does also represent health and diet and physicality, so remain, getting exercise and... Oh, look, there's nothing wrong with eating and drinking, and frankly, the only reason why I exercise as much as I do is because I like eating and drinking. Otherwise, I would have been gone long ago. I think that she's also saying to you to go forward quietly without an overt attack on existing situations. So don't become like Che Guevara and create a revolution during this period. Oh, I think that she's also talking to me about, I think, a desire for you to focus and produce things which are practical and useful to society and for life in general. She's in harmony with nature and the cycles of living a harmonious life. And she's growing, she's not stagnant. And the journey that she has undertaken, and she's come through this desert, shows that that her vision about going forward has come about by learning lessons and working on herself. She has strength and adaptability and the ability, I think, to go with the flow, as I say, which gets her through the desert. And our lives invariably change. I mean, we start as caterpillars and end up as butterflies. I think that she can also channel her energy into working on herself and achieving in the world the things which are necessary to advance her material position. I think that this card shows that she's made plans to roughly be where she is now in life and work, and she's achieved those goals. But really, this is a time here where you find yourself at a sort of an oasis. But look, I want to go into this guy because he's got quite a different message, and I just want to see what the interaction is between him and also between him and her, which is coming underneath it. This might be almost like a brain explosion that you could have. Nothing wrong with brain explosions. Let's have a look at him. Well, the symbology of the card is he's a black horse, this great cloak almost of fire around him, isn't there? He's holding a wand here. He's the Knight of Wands. He's holding this wand with flames coming out of it. And again, here's this phallic symbol that we saw before, and with the same thing, which is about creation. That's with him. I think what's important to see with him is that, first of all, esoterically, the knight himself is fire, and he's in the suit of fire, so he's the fiery part of fire. So the energy that's coming about here is extremely strong. This horse, which he's riding on, obviously he doesn't have great control over. The helmet here is black that he's got, which says to me it's a color which, in this context, I can associate with the planet of Mars, which is about tremendous energy, fiery energy. But you see the way these flames are blowing? The wind obviously is coming from behind him. So he's got the wind behind him, and he's going full speed ahead with the wind in his sails. Now look, I'll say this, that well, first of all, the Lord of Flame and Lightning, the King of the Spirits of Fire. Sagittarius, all over here. It's interesting because Sagittarius was here with you as well. And of course, I also see Sagittarius in this card here, this fire sign. Although the people that I mentioned, whatever the messages were going to be important to you there as well. If it's somebody else in your life, I think it's likely to be a Scorpio, is what I'm getting. This is about activity, generosity, a degree of impetuosity. So I think you could be quite impetuous and just start something at a moment's notice. I think you'll be quite proud, quick and fast, but almost your actions are going to be almost unpredictable, I think. And there's a great degree of fierceness associated with the way that you may look at the world. What I'm getting is, I was wondering whether there was a real conflict between this woman and this guy, because she's talking with going with the flow, and what he's talking about, you would think at first sight, is bang, speed, because once he makes his mind on it, like the arrow of Sagittarius, once that arrow has been let loose, it just keeps going, and it can't adapt to circumstances. You can't change course. But what I'm really getting, I think, as a result of the interaction of the cards with one another, is that I think there could be some quite startling and revolutionary sort of events going on around you during the period. That's really what I'm getting. And I think that you should, in the face of this kind of, I don't know if it's so much turmoil, but kind of rapid change, I think that you should be cool and collected, resolute and energetic, but be careful of the actions you take, as don't do anything that's not well thought out, but go forward with an alert confidence. And I think that makes it consistent with this card here and what we were talking about. I think that's the advice that's coming from it. The cards say different things, of course, in different spreads, and they're dependent on what other cards are saying. Yeah, so go forward with confidence in your ability. Yeah. Look, this knight, as I say, is someone who really doesn't have the opportunity to change his way of doing things. Look, find your vitality by all means and trust your instincts. Let your hair down. Give yourself a pep talk and believe that you can do it. I think what we can also say is that, well, there may well be swift, sudden and strong action that needs to be taken, but you will need a virtuous goal to direct yourself at in order for things to work out for the good. Just be careful about how much you tend to drink, I think. No offense intended. There's just a feeling coming up here of alcohol and drugs. Just don't get lost in them. Yeah, I think that this is all about, real need for swiftness here. But just be aware of a tendency to rush things, as even though decisive energy and decisive action may be necessary, just don't rush it. Yeah, I think that that's really what's come through from the interaction of these three cards together. Now, what is very interesting, though, is this, and this is something that it's not inconsistent with these other cards, but it does add an extra flavour to what we were talking about. And here is the Queen of Cups. Well, firstly, she has this big circle here. That's the moon rising. The moonlight coming down acts as a sort of a veil. Now, it might be difficult for you to see her. Let me see if I can get this in a bit closer for you. Her head is there. That's where her head is. And this moonlight acts as a sort of a veil over her. She's holding a cup, as you would expect for the Queen of Cups, in which a fish is standing with its tail pushed up in the sign of the fork of Neptune. So there's a Neptune influence in this card, which is it's about breaking down boundaries, but it's also about delusion, and it's about illusion. This stork that she's got her hand on here, the stork is actually the Egyptian god Thoth, which is about intellect. She's controlling this thing though, and it says to me that she's acting less on intellect than she is on intuition. I'm getting that very much, because here is, if you like, the boundary of this lake, and everything's reflecting back to her, which is to show that she's being very open and she's receptive to the influences of other things coming along. A couple of lilies here, the Alpha and the Omega. Anything else of any particular interest? Not really, I don't think. We've covered the main bits. What is interesting about this Queen of Cups is that saying to me that just be aware that you could well become very much under the influence of other people during this period. Her character is, she's at the mercy of every external impression and thought that's around. And so she tends to take on the characteristics of other people. Now, as your mother always said, you are judged by the company that you keep. And so what I would say is that this is a period where you really do need to be aware of the type of people that you're hanging out with. In particular, stay away from people who are negative and downbeat. The Queen of the Thrones of Water. Is it someone else? Yeah, Cancer perhaps, or a Gemini. She's intuitive, dreamy, tranquil, poetic, kind, and passive. I think there's a chance that you could be quite psychic during this period here. I think past hurts could well have been important to her. She's someone, I get the impression that, I'm just getting this feeling around her that she's someone who could well have almost been ruined financially or emotionally by a previous relationship. However, I think that there's great love associated with this card. There's great abundance, riches of insight here, acceptance of all things. You'll be able to almost merge into those around you. You'll be able to communicate perfectly with all your friends, and you'll be very intuitive and understanding of other people. But be careful, because you may well take on their energy, and so make sure that you surround yourself with people who are very positive. Well, that's the way it is for you this month. Well, there you go. There is your November 2019 reading, and look, I thought that was fantastic. I really enjoyed doing that. Extremely interesting for me to be able to do that. I love this deck, and I love the messages that were coming through for you. I think that I think you're going to have a great month. Look, the only other thing that remains for me to say is this, that you are a legend, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, bye for now.